Kia ora.
I call Mark Mitchell, 5 minutes in reply.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. So I have made a point because I do want to be able to make some serious responses to the issues that were raised by the members across the House. This is going to be somewhat of a challenge, to be honest with you. Carmel Sepuloni, well, her contribution was she's too busy to really look at it. She did manage to make some comment around keeping them out of court. And actually, this bill, if you look at it, is about keeping offenders out of court. It's avoiding the stigmatisation that puts them back into court. And then we came to Jan Logie. Well, that was a really interesting contribution. She's too busy as well to look at this. And I found out that she doesn't like me anymore. Well, somehow I'm going to have to try and deal with that. I'm not sure how. And she felt that it was a deep attack on beneficiaries. This bill is really simple, is that people that are actually on a benefit, I believe, have got a contract with the taxpayers of New Zealand who are paying them, right? When they as part of a sentence, if they're given a community service, often this is actually a real opportunity for them to get into the community and do something positive. And if they choose not to be compliant, then I think that we should take steps to make sure and encourage them to be compliant. I'll come to Mr Ball's comments in a minute because he raised a very interesting point. He raised a question with me: what happens to people who fail to comply with a community sentence who don't collect a government benefit? So the answer is very simple. At the moment, if you are not a beneficiary, if the taxpayer is not funding you and you're getting your revenue from another source, whether it be the private sector or whether you're self-employed, then basically, if they're non-compliant, they'll be warned and then they'll be taken back into court and they'll be dealt with in court, right? So what this bill is actually doing, what this bill is doing, Mr Ball, is it's actually giving offenders that have been convicted an opportunity to come and engage in their community sentence, and it relates directly to people who have been funded and paid by the taxpayer. And I come back to that social contract that they have and that responsibility they have. This country is built on some pretty important values. Personal responsibility and individual freedoms, Mr Ball. So I'm very surprised that you're standing up saying that you're tough on crime and yet you want to let offenders off that the taxpayer is actually paying, that is funding, and you don't want them to be held to account to actually come along and engage in their community sentence. That's a very interesting position that you're taking. And I'll be very interested to hear you get up in the House and try and defend that position. So let's move on from Mr Ball and let's go to Kelvin. So Kelvin's contribution, I was really looking forward to this, and he didn't let me down. Right? He spoke about the PRT, which is very important, Cal, I admit that. And then he talked about tying prisoners to beds. I can assure you there's nothing in this legislation that relates to tying prisoners to beds, thank goodness. And then give him his dues. Eventually he admitted that he wanted to talk about things that actually were totally unrelated to the bill. But Mr Clendon surprised me, and it was a pleasant surprise, because he got up and it sounded like he was going to support the bill. He understood what it was about. It's about non-compliance. He did. We thought he was going to cross the floor there for a minute. That's right. He thought it. He did highlight that it's about non-compliance, and he's absolutely right, Mr Speaker. This bill is about non-compliance. It's about the non-compliant behaviour of offenders who have been convicted of a crime, who are receiving a government benefit funded by the taxpayer. The expectation is this, is that they front up and they do their community service. They get into the community and they take the opportunity that they've been given to do something positive. If they don't do that, then we will send a warning letter to them, not once but twice, to say, if you break the contract, then we'll start to reduce your benefit. I think that's fair. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Members, this debate has concluded.